Hey everyone, this week I wanted to jump on and just do a solo cast. It's been a while since I've come on and shared with you some themes, and today I just want to do like a Valentine's mid-February check-in with the energies on the planet and what's going on thematic wise, both in my personal life and my work life, and how this is all, what is the word? Coalescing, I guess, coming together in the bigger themes that are happening in the world. And so for the past, 2 months or so, I've been sharing some re-releasing some interviews that I conducted during my Integrative Healing Summit a year ago. And I'm just taking some time to share those interviews because first of all, they were super yummy and they had a lot of really good content. And so I wanted to make those available. If you haven't checked them out, I think I've shared probably 4 or 5 of the 8. I have to go back and check. I'll put all those links in the description of this podcast. And I'm trying to think if there were any other ones. I can't remember right now, so I'll have to double check. And if there is, I'll include it in the description, the link in the description. So today, I just wanted to share with you some themes coming up as I return back from the UK, which was a really mystical, magical trip for me. It was like a return home after being away for 23 years. I left Scotland after completing my master's degree right around, it was September of 2001 that I returned. And it was a very intense time. 9/11 had just happened. I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to return to America in September. And I did. And it was quite sudden. It was very fast return and ending of a 2-year stint that I had over in the UK. And there wasn't a lot of transition time. It was just like, write my dissertation, and then the next day I was on a plane back to America. And so anyhow, 23 years later, it just so happens that this facilitation training that I've been following for some time, that I've been interested in, called the Field, that is constructed around supporting facilitations in the container of consciousness, that when we get together with a group of people, it creates another element that's alive and has its own interests and consciousness. And so it's about tuning into this field, learning how to create a cohesive container that serves people in the work that they're doing, whether that's looking at the patterns in their life, working through shadow, looking at trauma patterns, ways of being that may have really constricted or stopped them from living into the full expression. And so it's really about expanding that range of what's available for people in a loving, supportive, safe, nurturing space, and creating a culture of care. And so returning to that land of the UK was kind of special, because I also got to return to, or actually go for the first time, to visit Glastonbury. I had lived in the UK for 2 years and traveled all over and gone to many places, but never had the opportunity to visit Glastonbury. So this time when I went, it was right next door to where the retreat was being held. And it was a magical time. I got to attend the Imbolc ceremony, which was on February 1st. Little did I know that I scheduled my one day there on that day, and I was so excited to witness the ritual ceremony of the Imbolc process in the White Springs. It was magical. I got to meet Merlin and all of the people that participate in proceeding over that ceremony, that ritual every year. And I got to speak with Merlin, and he told me a little bit about the ritual, and then got to see the chalice well, which is the feminine aspect of that land of Avalon, as it's known. And then I climbed up to the tour up on the hill, which is the masculine complement to the chalice well. They're holding the space of that land. And Merlin was actually at the top. They take the light from the goddess, the incarnation of the goddess Bridget, who is represented by a young girl who lights the fire that represents the return of the light after the winter. And this is all a process of her lighting the fire and bringing it down into the dark well where the White Springs is, and lighting the return of the light. And it's super magical. And then the lantern with the light is taken to the chalice well. There's a public meditation held, and then that light, that lantern, is taken up to the tour eventually. And then it has two other places before, I should say one other place to travel to before it ends up in Stonehenge on February the 4th. So I felt very fortunate. And when I arrived in Glastonbury after the 7-day retreat that I participated in, I took a walk around the city when I first arrived, and I tuned into the land, and I could feel and sense the buzzing of the land. And I asked Spirit, like, what is that buzzing? Like, oh, it's the bees, right? It's the bees. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that land was specifically tied to bee energy. So I talked to the host at my Airbnb. He said, yes, it's the Druids. They work with the bees. And I was like, well, it's strong. I heard it. I felt it. And so that makes sense. So my whole trip was kind of like a series of magical events that were unfolding moment to moment. And so I was swept up, the divine and me have that kind of relationship. The divine likes to bring me situations that delight me because they're magical. And I am a mystic and a visionary, so these particular events, how they occurred to me, were not lost on me, let's say. And just returning back to London and spending the night there and taking a walk around the city and visiting Paddington Station and Kensington Park, and it was a very nostalgic because one of my good friends who I spent a lot of time with in the UK my first year has passed away now, and so I kept seeing him and remembering him as I walked through London, and I made my way on the train from London to Castle Carey, which was the closest train station to the retreat center. And so it was all a bit melancholy as well. And I don't think that I am unique in this energetic feeling right now. There's a sense of letting go, a lot of release of old ways of being. And as I returned home, discovering that one of my lifelong friends, I met her when I was 17, just getting into the beauty industry, and had passed away unexpectedly. I was surprised. I didn't know she was sick. I saw her probably maybe a year or a year and a half ago, and she looked healthy and energetic and robust, and I felt so sad that I hadn't known that she was struggling with alcoholism, and that she finally lost her battle with that and left. She's just a year older than I am, and she has 3 beautiful children. The youngest, I think, is just probably 19 or 20. And so that was a real low, like coming back from such a expansive, enjoyable trip. And then as a group of friends, right, I worked with these people for 10 years of my life, or more, actually. And I saw them weekly, every day, for almost 10 years, or about 10 years, let's say. And they were like family. And we had moved on with our lives. I had moved on and taken on new projects and new endeavors and new adventures in my work life, into educational research and professional development, and then into teaching in the classroom. And then all of my intuitive work, my hypnotherapy work, energy healing, my travels, my involvement in mindfulness education in the schools. So there's a lot of water under the bridge, let's say. And so having that come back around, because the last time I had left to go to the UK was when I said goodbye to all those people. Like, they left my everyday life. And so 23 years later, I go back, and I come back, and not only had my friend passed away, but as we reached out to other people in our friend group, found out another friend that I had worked with in the same group had taken his life in September, and nobody had known until we tried to reach out, and found out of the events that had occurred. And so it was like a double whammy. And I found this out on the anniversary of my father's passing, February the 4th, which was when the light was supposed to be returned to Stonehenge. And so all of these intersecting streams of energy and of life that seem unrelated on the surface are in some ways really related energetically to my own soul growth and path. And so I was taking some time yesterday, after spending the weekend doing the metaphysical fair, and had a great time there doing healings and intuitive readings and some somatic release work with people. It's really fun to connect face to face and support people in moving through their energetic blockages, with their the lessons that they're learning through as a spirit. And of course, connecting with all the metaphysical community here locally in Portland. It's really beautiful to network and brainstorm about doing events with each other and how we can support one another in our practice. And so I was able to take some time and connect with each of their spirits and just listen to them about what was going on and how their spirit had been put in such a place where their behavior reflected a certain inevitability of like nothing else was available, nothing else was possible. And again, the idea that I had just returned from a retreat on creating a culture of care, that these two souls that passed were under resourced, like they didn't have or didn't see any other option possible than, say, abusing alcohol or taking one's life. And it's super impactful because, you know, today's Valentine's Day, the day of love, and it's usually reserved for romantic love. But perhaps the greatest love of all is the love that we have for each other and for ourselves. And unfortunately, historically in the past, our imprint for self-love is inherited from our caretakers. And it's only as good or expansive as that blueprint that was given to us, unless we've intentionally taken the time to revise that contract, to expand what's available, to heal and address our trauma so that we have more access to resource, so that when we hit a life challenge, we're not blown away by it. You know, we're not willing to destroy our life over it because we see that we have a choice. And so on this Valentine's Day, I would like to just acknowledge that really what this day marks for me, I don't know about you, is that this really little, small interpretation of our humanity where we show up and we, you know, trade chocolates and roses, which is nice, right? Don't get me wrong. I love chocolate and I love roses. But it's so much more than that, right? It's the day-to-day integration of the vibration of love and how we show up for people, how we show up for each other as a culture. And clearly, we are failing at quite a rate. And I'm not telling you this to create hopelessness or sadness or despair. I'm actually seeing it as an opening for what we can create for ourselves and those that we love, so that there is access to resource. So a wider spectrum of choices becomes available that's really connected to our access to community. And that people that currently feel isolated or alone, like they don't have anyone to support them. Maybe some people don't have access to their family or don't have a family. And even if they do have a family, perhaps their family is so fractured that they're not in contact and they can't really rely on one another. And I guess what I'm getting at is beginning to acknowledge the state of our relationship to community. And by becoming conscious of it and aware of its current condition, that we can begin to commit through our actions, through our practices, to build a more robust connection and awareness around community and what that means for people. And this is also largely connected to addressing mental and emotional health. I don't know if a lot of you know, but I was raised in a family where I experienced dealing with mental illness. My older sister had severe bipolar, and I spent a lot of my younger years attending to her when she had episodes. It was very disruptive to our home. And the level of care that she received was not great, right? And a lot of the times, at the time, she was not diagnosed correctly. The doctors weren't sure what was wrong. And then by the time that they discovered what was wrong, she had gone through many really disturbing episodes of being hospitalized and being over-medicated. And my parents didn't really possess the education or the subtlety of awareness around mental health issues. And they also carried a lot of guilt and shame around. There is a lot of guilt and shame around mental health issues just in general, but feeling somehow responsible for her condition and not knowing what to do, so the sense of helplessness. And a lot of this went unaddressed, like never spoken about, even though it was an elephant in the room in our home. And the other challenges around mental health in my family, which I won't go into now, but a lot of it was behind closed doors. Nobody wants anybody to know. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not something that's shared outside of the family because, again, a lot of shame and guilt and a level of fear and embarrassment and feeling like it has to be covered up. And I'm just one person, right? So I know this is probably experienced by many, many people, many families, many, many different ways. I know from being a teacher in a classroom for many years that these familial patterns affect learning. They show up in different symptoms and diagnoses, and often go undiagnosed at all because we are such adaptive beings that our bodies are so committed to survival, and children don't really have the cognitive development or linguistic development to identify their needs, let alone express their needs. And often parents didn't have this course, so they don't have the toolbox to address these issues. And even those parents that do have the tools, are still under-supported, right? Because we have this model of this nuclear family where it's two parents responsible for raising a family, and both of them are working full-time and they're exhausted. And then they come home and there's no way that they have enough resource to support their children in a way that allows them to feel supported and safe, because families weren't designed to be functioning in the nuclear model, right? We were supposed to be supported by community and family. And this is where the breakdown happens in our nervous system. And meanwhile, we're trying to function in this version of reality that is not in alignment with our mental or emotional health. And many people are suffering and trying to numb out just to show up every day and live, show up for their job and live their role as their profession and be a parent. And it all seems to be falling apart at the seams. And I'm not sad about it. I'm actually I'm sorry that people are suffering. Don't get me wrong. But I'm pleased to see that more and more people are noticing that this system that we have in place is not sustainable. It's not viable. And that the increasing level of mental health issues with young people is skyrocketing, and there's a reason for that. And this is where we get to our later years, and all of that trauma and unprocessed, undigested emotion catches up with us in one way or the next. Unless we have a culture that has the capacity to have this level of discussion around health, mental health, emotional health, and makes it the value system underlying our livelihood, our living well, our sense of wellness. And so, if nothing else, I have just really had my path get clearer about the work that I'm doing, about the tools that I'm providing, sharing with people to help build that inner resource where people feel that they are well resourced and have choice. And the more and more people that get these tools, that become literate in their own internal systems, including our nervous system, the interface with our nervous system, and what that needs to feel to be regulated. And that's the healthiest thing that we can do, not only for ourselves individually, but for our entire community and our families and our schools and our institutions. And so this shift is in process. It's just the beginning. It's beginning to unfold, and I'm excited about it. I felt that when I was in Glastonbury. I felt that vibration that I felt through that hum of the bees is the sound of nature, and she's coming for us. She's coming to ask us to return to our own divine nature, which is the intelligence in us. It's our energetic intelligence that a lot of us have had to constrict, cut off, disassociate from, numb out, because there was, in this current paradigm that's dying right now, right? It was a paradigm of lack. There's not enough time. In one of the richest countries in the world, there's not enough time. There's not enough space to address the most essential part of your humanity, your emotions, your physical body. And so there's a huge transition happening, and it's going to take some time. But it can also be instantaneous shift for people. It's happening faster and faster. People are waking up and they're starting to notice, like, hey, and there's this feeling that I was sharing. It's a mix of nostalgic of like, oh, I have to let that go because it's not truly in alignment with the life force principle anymore. And there was a time where it seemed to be like that's the level of human evolution we were at. Like, and now it's just not working anymore. And there's a lot of people leaving the planet right now. For whatever reason, you know, they come, they've done their part, and they're leaving. Now, does it have to be that way? I don't know. That's not for me to know. I just know that that's a symptom of what's happening. And I'm a firm believer that nothing happens by accident. Life is intelligent. And so just like the immune system in a body, right? We are a huge cultural body. We exist in many different levels. These bodies, right? The city we live in is a body. The country we live in, the entire world is one human body, humanity. And when part of it is under attack, or is ill, or is sick, or is breaking down, right? The white blood cells come and they help rid the organism of the diseased cell. And so this happens on a individual body level. It also happens on a larger level, because nature looks for equilibrium, balance. And there's probably a lot more involved than that. That's just a very superficial approach. And I don't really have time to go in deeper into it right now. But there's also a piece I wanted to share with you before I go around the idea of channeling. What I do, I never thought about calling it channeling because it's just a natural part of who I am, and it always has been, to receive information from a higher level of consciousness. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm being called to do that. I might be. You know, I hate to, I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling comfortable with giving myself the title of channel. I mean, we're all channels. Just some of us are more open and available to access information. And so when I come on and I share my podcast or come on to my lives, all that information is channeled. I don't call it channeling. I just show up and it moves through me. So I know people are very oohed and awed by the title of channel. They're like, oh, she's a channel, you know. So I just haven't stepped into that as fully as I could, because I think it's super important to remain grounded in this level of reality. Not that anything's the matter with channeling or people that channel channel different groups, different spirits, different ascended masters. I've just kept that private between me and my spirit guides, and I don't know if I'm being called to do that. But I wanted to share that with you for some reason. Felt called. And two, I wanted to let you know that I'm offering healings, energetic healings, and they are related to my intuitive ability to read energy and say it out loud. Because a lot of times, a lot of our patterns and behaviors are unconscious. It's not like we don't know them. It's just hard to see ourselves sometimes because we're so close. We're like a fish in water. So really what an intuitive healer does is I connect to your higher self, and your higher self is telling me exactly the words and the things to focus on. And that would be for your best and highest growth at this moment in your evolution. And I'm also doing through my work, through this field facilitation, as well as my work in my mentorship, my alchemy mentorship, working with the field of consciousness. Some people call this the Akash. I like to think of it as the field of consciousness itself. And it's like the cloud, right? It's like everything that ever was is in that cloud. And I don't need to access all of it. I just need to access what's right in front of me at that moment. And so when we're working with the shared field, whether it's two people or a whole group of people, we can tap in and find out what wants to be known through that meeting, through that learning, what's being called by consciousness itself for our evolution. So while it's being communicated through one person or two people, it's not personal. It's consciousness calling itself forward in a new way. And when we tap into this field, we start getting our information directly from the creation codes, which are intelligence itself, life intelligence itself. And so this is a big shift from what we've been taught about knowledge and knowing and where we need to go, to get our degrees in, certain domains where we're certified experts. And at the same time, like that model of education is, I'm not saying that it will go away completely. We still need to train people in different skills and practices. But the focus is shifting on how we're relating to this organic matrix that we're part of called nature, and how disconnected we've been for many reasons, and that we're in the process of reconnecting to the network, which our body is the docking tool, right? To dock in to that network area, body network, that has all of the technology in it. It came that way. So I think I'll leave it there. I want to thank you for stopping by and listening to my Valentines musings for this week, for my podcast, a special edition for Valentine's Day. Sending you big love wherever you are, whether you're partnered or unpartnered or part of community or part of the community of yourself. and you're connecting to all the billions of cells in your body, you are a walking expression of divine love, no matter what. And whether you are receiving roses or chocolates, every breath that you take is a gift and a confirmation that you are meant to be here, that you matter, that you're loved, that you are love. You're walking love, breathing in and out every day. And so I want to thank you for stopping by and taking a listen, spending your time. I know there's lots of things that you can listen to. If something that you heard here today spoke to you or touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, or comment. It helps build the listenership of this podcast, Lifting the Veil. All right, I'm signing off. Until next time, take care of yourself and bye for now.